You have a part of yourself that you've held tight in a bud, like a lotus that hasn't blossomed, either because of insecurity, lack of opportunity. Well, now is your time. This is Mayday, and so everything is in bloom, including you. Welcome. I'm Judith Royal, archetypal astrologer, and this is your Astrology weather report, your forecast for the week of April 30th through May 6, 2018. It's a lunar leap week, so we don't have a specific moon phase this week, so I'm going to take advantage of that to catch you up on the big umbrella that we're all standing under in that big sky above us. Last week on, let's see, it was April 26th, that Mayday, Mayday, Mayday probably came from some of our lips because we did have the first of the contact between Mars and Pluto that is shaking up a thunderous cry and really maybe like feeling an earth shattering or shaking below you. And it's going to happen again. We're going to have like a second echo of it on May 5th. So around the world, you know, we are hearing cries for help. But I want you to focus on the cry for help that comes from inside you. So 3 things this week I want to talk about in that regard. And the first one is that we are beginning, we are just a few days from the exact entrance of Uranus into Taurus. So this is going to be the next 7 years, and I think we should initiate that with a really good plan. And I think that first, let's make sure you have scratched that Aries itch, because Uranus is the 7-year itch guy. And in Aries, you were called to do something very pioneering, extremely aggressive probably, but it gave us the energy to really get that hero and heroine on the journey of our destiny. So probably you tried some things that other times you would have never tried, and that's a wonderful thing. So now we're going to be taking that into the sign of Taurus, and all that's going to get grounded and, well, almost practical. Then this Thursday, May the 3rd, Mercury, he's direct, he's not retrograde now, but on the 3rd, he's going to return to the place where he began. So he's going to return to the spot where he started going retrograde on March 22nd, so that we have a full circle. Anything in terms of communications, deals that didn't get quite done or signed, I think you can really look for the conclusion and culmination coming up this Thursday. And then the other thing I want to say, which is Cinco de Mayo, which is, I don't know, it's sort of a celebration that's a little bit undefined, and it is this Friday. And the reason I bring it up, however, is because this Friday, the moon in Capricorn is going to trigger 6 planets, one after the other. So this is going to be a rather momentous day, and it will end with some challenges that you may think you're going to get away with something, but you're not. And it's going to take us really quite deep. We're going to start hearing the music of that beautiful Taurus energy that we're all in, with so many Earth planets along with it. And we're going to have a second time this month that the moon is going to trine the sun. That's like, yeah, harmony. You may hear the heavenly choir. So we had the first one on April 24th, and this week we will have the second one on on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. So that's pretty exciting. Before I walk you through the days of this coming week so that you can see who's going to have their lunar birthday and what elements are compatible with your sun and moon sign, I think we should set the archetypal stage and remember the big picture, the backstory, because the archetypes are always there. in the back of the stage, and of course the whole world is your stage. You're just an actor and also the author of the story. So what big story started with us last week was that Chiron, who is archetype of the wounded healer and tutor of Achilles, he changed signs and left Pisces, moving into Aries. So we have a new recipe for healing, and Chiron will be in this same position for about the same length as Uranus will be in Taurus, which is 7 years. And in this, we have got a new recipe for our journey, because Chiron is symbolically giving us that hero's energy to break the bondage of limitations, to find our true strength, and to break the limitations of that always unsatisfied ego, right? And I think we're having this healing around the fact of knowing that we create our own reality, of course, by our thoughts, and also how important it is every day to choose your guide wisely. Always, the ego jumps in and says, let's do this, let's go get more, etc., etc. I notice it's a very quick and loud voice in my mind. But there's also, of course, that quiet voice. And here we do have the healing. So as you stop, and please stop some, whether it's in yoga or it's a beautiful walk in nature, and stop and make the conscious choice of who you want to guide you through this particular day. Even if you forget, it doesn't matter, because your guide will not forget. So we have also, I want to say it's very important what's happened with Chiron, especially for people who were born while Chiron was in Aries. And that was January 31st, 1969, all the way through May 28th, 1976. Because if you were born during those years, you're now having what's called your Chiron return. It's coming back to the place it was when you were born. So this is a full circle of healing, especially for you. And the other part of the backstory and the archetype we want to talk about is Mars. He's still in Capricorn along with those other big warrior planets. And so he had that meeting with Pluto last week, but we're going to have it again. And I want you to think back to what kinds of perhaps breakdown in your plans, maybe just even a flat tire of some sort, because you know that would be an outer manifestation of something that is happening inner. What sort of your big ambitions got challenged last week, perhaps in a dispute or somebody trying to invite you into a power play struggle, which of course you didn't bite. But anyway, we're now in a place where we can really accomplish so much if we harness this energy. Really, it's going to be amazing what you're going to be able to do. And so, of course, the last thing that happened last week, bringing us into this week of April 29th, we had that Scorpio full moon. And this week, starting on the 30th, we still have a Scorpio moon. So that whole thing is still in effect. It's still sort of unraveling, as it were. It's like the denouement or whatever that Scorpio moon pulled up from the depths of ourselves. You can always know with Scorpio, it will feel like you're obsessed with it. It will feel like you're compulsive about it. You have to do something. So if you notice what energy is coming up around that, you will know where your guide is taking you, and you will know where your healing for this particular week is going to be coming from. So now I'm going to walk you through the week. So what's on the road ahead for us, for you in particular? One thing I love about archetypal astrology is my philosophy, or the philosophy about it, which is that we are simply reading, I am simply reading in the stars, a journey that you've already taken to a place you've already been. And so we're really reading the signposts on the road ahead that have already been installed, and by our own selves, by our own souls, but also by our collective souls, our collective consciousness. So they should always, when I talk to you about it, there should be some vague familiarity, right? Because I'm not telling you anything that at your soul's level you don't already know. So this past few weeks, I have noticed, and I think you have too, that there have been some adversities in the world, out picturing some personal adversities that we're facing in our own lives, because we're really being called to choose who is our guide and how are we going to live our lives. Are we only going to follow the ego, thinking that we have to get more, do more, have more? And mainly, the ego's big selling job is to say this body that we're in is proof that we're all separate. But of course we're not. So we're just not going to buy that anymore. And we're going to live the life of our soul, because it is in the stars, and in your particular birth chart is your soul's code. It is literally a map of what you have planned to have happen on this journey in this lifetime. So I've had a temptation the past week to think things were absolutely impossible. And that's because I'm in the middle of a move, and the dates that one thing was supposed to happen, and it was dependent on something else happening, and none of them worked out. So it looked like there was going to be this collision of movers, and I was starting to really worry about that. Now, I have learned that worrying used to feel like, doing something, because I have a lot of Virgo. But now I know it's an absolute useless thing. And I also got some news this past week about a friend that in the past I would have thought it was awful news. I would have thought it was a big tragedy. But now I know, because, the angels give us this message, that it is just part of life, and it is unfolding perfectly, whether I understand it or not, right? So on how do I go through this and keep my attitude, not all the time, but most of the time, out of fear and in love, is I watch the synchronicities. And that's what those signposts are on the road that we're on today, on the road ahead as well. They're those little magical kismet, those little unbelievable coincidences. And they are events showing you the light on your path. So during one of those upsetting adversarial days this past week, it just so happened, coincidence and synchronicity, that in the morning meditation, one of my books just fell open to a particular phrase that at the time I didn't think it had a practical application, but of course it always does, because spirituality is practical, or else it's no use at all, right? So the book I fell open, and it said, when I think I am in an impossible situation, it is only because I think it's possible to be in an impossible situation. So in other words, it's my thoughts that create my attitude, that create my feeling, and so I can always reboot those, right? The metaphor, the big archetype, and maybe it's helpful for you, that I think about is salmon swimming upstream. So here we are on our hero's journey, and there are obstacles, those salmon, they're rocks in the rivers, they're twigs, sometimes they're bears grabbing at them. And I learned a very interesting thing about how the salmon really do this. And, you know, Mother Nature will teach us everything we need to know if we pay attention. And the thing is, they go for and seek out the part of the river where the water is really rushing, where there is the strongest current coming against them. And the reason they do this is really quite beautiful. They do this because where the water is rushing, it has had no obstacles. So they can swim upstream and they're not going to like bump into a big rock because the current has told them the water moves freely, and so will they. So the rush of current in our lives is, of course, the truth coming at us. And sometimes it does feel like a lot, but if we get in there and we just swim towards it, even though it takes a little effort, we will not find obstacles and we will get to our goal, we will get to our destiny. And even what looks like a difficult thing when those salmon jump up that water, it looks like a lot of energy, but you know what? It's not. They just use their tail to grab the energy of the rushing current to sort of flip them along. So they're actually just having a good time. And I think that's what we can do too, even when the times look difficult. So I invite you then, as we move into this huge shift that Uranus is going to do, as well as many other planets with him. It'll be exact on May 15th, but we're really already in it. This is going to echo back to the last time that Uranus was in Taurus, which was in 1934. It was sort of the time of the Roosevelt New Deal. There were some big things on the financial market. But I will tell you, I know nothing about economics, so please don't think I'm giving you advice on that. But I do know about the energy. And with all the Capricorn, and now with Taurus in a beautiful trine, we're going to have a down-to-earth, no-frills shift, but the god of lightning is going to come in there and sizzle it up and say, we simply must do it differently in terms of our resources, what we consider valuable, how we manage our resources, and we're going to have solutions. We're already having them through technology in particular, because Uranus is the archetype, you know, lightning bolt, so that's electrical, digital, etc. So we're going to have leaps and bounds ahead in terms of innovation to solve the problems of the world. So that is going to be simply wonderful. And then all we have to do is be present in the now, to sort of think vertically, not in time, certainly not the past, and not planning the futures so much as to anticipate the wonderful opportunities ahead. And that's what will make it so. Thank you for listening this week, and I want to thank you for your comments and your likes. I really appreciate that, and for all of you who shared the video. So if you like it, please pass it on, pay it forward, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.